Welcome to the Civic Brief with Dr. Isaiah Ike Wilson III, where complex issues meet everyday lives. Now, let's begin.
Travelers, you've just heard Susan Eisenhower reflect on her grandfather's principles. Now let's bring that wisdom forward into the lens of compound security. President Eisenhower believed in balance between might and morality, strength and restraint, liberty and duty. Now these weren't just Cold War values, they're survival values in a world like ours. Because today we don't face one crisis at a time. We live in a compound era. Climate disruption, strategic rivalry, civic erosion, all happening at once. And Ike wouldn't tell us to panic, posture, or point fingers. He'd tell us to think deeper, plan smarter, and lead with steadiness. Leadership, he'd say, is not about showmanship. It's about service. Now, let's talk about July 2025, Central Texas floods, lives lost, entire communities underwater, power knocked out, roads impassable, and a government caught flat-footed. The storm itself, natural. The disaster, entirely man-made. It's what happens when leaders operate in silos, when they react too late and ignore the warning lights, blinking across every system from infrastructure to trust. But here's the thing. It didn't have to be this way. Let me pause here and explain something. The WISE way isn't just a framework. It's a strategic methodology I developed over decades in national security, diplomacy, and leadership education. It stands for Wilson Strategic Enterprises. But more importantly, it stands for a way of seeing the world as it truly is. Interconnected, interdependent, and in need of compound solutions. It began in the combat zones of Iraq, evolved through my work in post-conflict transitions, and matured as I train future military and civilian leaders. It's built on a simple but powerful principle. Defense, diplomacy, development, and commerce must be integrated, not just coordinated, if we're going to survive the age of convergence, because whether the threat is a terrorist cell or a rising sea, the response must be whole of society. Folks, that's the WISE way. Now, let's return back to this application to the Central Texas floods, July 2025. Folks, we've been thinking the WISE way, we would have seen this flood not as a weather event, but a chain reaction waiting to happen. Here's what that looks like in real terms, through a WISE lens. Before the rain fell, we'd have had real and digital scouts mapping vulnerability. Not just flood zones, but nursing homes, trailer parks, low-income neighborhoods. Before the rivers swelled, first responders, police, fire, guard, civic leaders, they would have rehearsed the response together. They would not have met for the first time at the Emergency Ops Center. Before the headlines, trust would have already been built. So when the alert came, people would have known where to go, who to trust, and why they mattered. Folks, that's not big government. That's compound governance. That's resilience rooted in trust. Now, it's important to have a bit of a retrospective because this month is Hurricane Katrina plus 20 years. And 20 years later, as we mark that anniversary, that sad anniversary, we have to ask the same hard questions. Because Katrina wasn't a hurricane. It was a compound failure. Failure of levees, failure of logistics, failure of leadership, failure to value Black lives, poor lives, and old lives. And 2 decades later, let's ask ourselves, have we really done better? Eisenhower didn't have drones, satellite imaging, or smart grids, but he understood readiness. He knew that strategy starts with foresight, not flash. So let me be blunt. If we don't start acting like a country that prepares rather than reacts, we won't just keep losing property. We'll keep losing lives. The WISE way calls us to stop dividing defense from development. They are two sides of the same coin. It calls us to stop calling redundancy waste. Redundancy is what makes systems resilient. Stop thinking national security is about bombs and borders. It's about whether your grandma has power when the water rises. And start leading like the future actually depends on it, because it does. If Dwight Eisenhower were here, he'd ask us, why weren't we ready? What did we ignore? And most of all, what will we do differently next time? That, my friends, is real civic leadership. That's the wise way.
Thanks for tuning into the Civic Brief. Got questions, insights, or ideas? Join us at thecivicbrief.com to continue the dialogue. Subscribe, share, and be part of shaping the future, one brief at a time.